Hi, welcome to Psychobabble Movie Review. This was a surprise review for me. I didn't think I was even going to go to the movies and see this film, Prodigy. This movie is not a complicated tale. It's fun. It's filmed in a very serious and realistic manner. The color palette to the editing and the cinematography all say I'm a very serious film. I'm not campy, I'm not corny, not too short, not too long. This film almost hit the perfect notch. So I want to make the review short and to the point. And let's start with the trailer to Prodigy.
Did you really just say that? Nurturing genius.
He's our little prodigy.
Miles isn't wired like other kids.
His intelligence is off the charts. I don't have an exact score, but it'll be very high.
He's special.
Mommy, what's wrong with me?
Miles is having a very difficult time making friends. I want you to tell me everything that you remember.
I don't remember anything.
Miles's brain is extremely well developed. He may need a specialist.
You must be Miles. Miles is dangerous.
I don't feel safe with him in the house.
Oh my God. He's so different now. I feel like I don't know him.
Mommy, will you always love me? No matter what I do?
Okay, so that's the trailer. And I want to see if from viewing the trailer, did you pick up on what I did when I've watched these trailers? What made me want to go see this movie? When I saw the trailer, I saw people on YouTube commenting that they thought it was either a possession or a haunting movie, a ghost story, paranormal activity movie. And I commented on their comments that I didn't think that at all. I thought there were numerous hints that this was about a killer, a regular person, but a serial killer, a psychopath being reincarnated. And this is him at 8 years old. Anyway, it's not a real spoiler of a reveal, because to me a reveal happens 2/3 of the way through a movie, 3/4 of the way through the movie, if not the very, very ending, which is the best. But this tells you it's a reincarnation story from the beginning, from the opening couple scenes, where it's cut back and forth from a killer and one of his victims getting away and the cops showing up then later and him dying, all at the same time that a young couple is giving a very early delivery to their baby boy long before the due date. And that happens all within 15 minutes of the killer dying, that the son is born. And the killer's laid out with gunshots all in his chest, and in the same pattern as the gunshots, we see speckles of blood on the baby's chest when it cuts to the baby being laid out in the hospital after the umbilical cord's cut and has been given complete birth to. So, this is a tale of reincarnation. I don't want to go into too much detail because even though I put a spoiler alert, I do want you to discover some things on your own when you see the movie, whether you go to the movies and see it, which I strongly recommend, and I'll get to that in a moment, or whether you wait for a Blu-ray or DVD or 4K Blu-ray. Anyway, let's start. Let me point out all the things I loved about this movie. I couldn't remember all the names, so I have it brought up. That's what I keep looking over here at my phone for. Let's start with the cast, because I could not remember the kid's name, but I just knew that he played Georgie in the new It movie. And he is as effective in this movie as he was as Georgie, and we didn't see him in the movie It very long as Georgie, but when we did see him, what we saw of him, he was very effective. Even his kind of creepy shot and scene where we see him after he's dead, and he keeps repeating that line in it over and over until his brother just freaks out. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about, but I'm not going to go into that because I want to keep this review set kind of short. All right. But his name is Jackson Robert Scott, and the kid is brilliant. He was perfectly cast for this movie. Moving on to Taylor Schilling, that plays the mother, perfectly cast for this movie. The only person I did not like in the cast, because even I know I'm going to pronounce his name wrong. If I'm pronouncing his name wrong, as Colm, Colm, Fiore, who plays the doctor, perfectly cast. You'll understand when you see the movie. Very believable at who he plays in the film. And then Brittany Allen has a small part in it. But anyway, the kid's perfect. The mom's perfect. It's just the dad just doesn't connect with us. Never connects or has chemistry with who plays his wife or who is his son in the movie. Just like he's just a cardboard character in the film. That's the only negative to the film. I did not mind the reveal being at the beginning of the movie, because the way that it's going back and forth as to the two things that's happening simultaneously is very important to what propels the story forward. So it could not be done in a flashback, and God knows we all hate flashbacks. It's like it screams to us that we're not intelligent enough to understand what's going on, so they're going to show a flashback. So I'm glad the movie did that. No negatives to it revealing that it's a reincarnation film from the beginning. Why does every movie have to have some kind of surprise in order to make the entire 90 minutes worth watching? Tell us what the story's about, and then entertain us for 90 minutes with perfect editing, cinematography, arrangement, acting, locations, and this movie does that. It delivers on every facet. I don't want to rave about the movie like it's some kind of Hitchcockian film. It's just a very, very simple, perfectly performed and delivered film in a day and age where everybody thinks they have to put a gimmick in the movie. And this movie is gimmickless. Honestly, I would give this film easily an 8 on a scale of 1 to 10, or 4 out of 5 stars. Either scale that you want to use, that's my rating. But what do I know? Everything I'm saying is just a bunch of psychobabble. But if I can, let me give you a couple details I'm going to reveal that I just particularly really loved. Simple shots that I thought was extremely creepy.
What is it? What happened? What happened?
There's one in here.
Where?
He's in here.
Honey, it sounds like you were having a bad dream. There's no one in here.
No. He's in here. He's inside here. He's inside here. Oh, baby.
Okay, there was this... I say that they didn't use any CGI in this film, which I applaud them for. Hate CGI. But then I remember this one scene that, honestly, they could have probably done just by raising a light behind the boy. As the camera pans down, it's only looking at the ground and not the boy. So we look at a shadow, and as we look at the shadow grows. And it's two ways it could be taken. A metaphor for how quickly he is developing emotionally and mentally, or the fact that it's revealing that that 8-year-old boy is not an 8-year-old boy. He is someone who has already lived an entire life, a serial killer. And that's its reveal. So you could take it either or both ways. And I do like that. But chances are they didn't just use raising a light, which is something I would do. It's a much more visceral and realistic feel. And you can tell that the shadow then grows really, instead of it. That one shot, I love it. I'm not bashing it. I actually am glad it's in the movie, but I do think that's the only shot that has CGI, and I'm usually anti-CGI, so I wish they would have used it just by moving a light. I would have given a much more credible review of that particular scene, but I still love it, even though I think it was done with CGI to be smoother. Anyway, and even be a little bit more exaggerated, as raising a light would only change the angle or stretch the shadow just a little bit. And this kind of really stretched out as you look down from the boy to the ground. Perfect. Loved it, even with CGI. The other really creepy effect is the boy has 2 different colored eyes. And at first you think, that's because had this killer not been reincarnated, this couple would have still given birth to a boy. There's still another, that's a viable living human being without the reincarnation story, because he didn't die until, the serial killer didn't die until 15 minutes before the boy was born. So what we probably have in there are 2 souls trapped in this body together that we see battle back and forth. And that does happen. We do see some of that. But that's not why he has 2 different color eyes, which I think that would have been cool to link the 2 different color eyes to that factor. But he has them because the serial killer had the same 2 different colored eyes. And it's one of their identifiable facts when the mother then realizes, wow, that doctor's right. I gave birth to a reincarnated killer. But I also have a son in there too. And so she makes this incredibly insane decision at the end. See, they say that in cases of reincarnation, when I say they, I mean the doctor in this movie, I've never heard this before this movie, is reincarnated solely to finish something that was the most important thing to them in their life. And for him, it was all these people that he'd killed over so many years. I think it was 9 or 10 victims. They were all women, and he'd cut their hands off for whatever reason that they did not explain, and I'm glad, because I don't like a movie to explain every detail. We don't need to be inside his head and understand that there's a reason for everything he does that's psychotic. But anyway, there was in that opening scene that spliced back and forth between his happenings and the couple's happenings, giving birth, and his demise. You see a woman escape, and she's missing a hand, where he cut one of her hands off, but before he came back to cut the other one off and kill her, she escaped. So flash forward 8 years, he's reincarnated, he's in this 8-year-old boy, and what does the mother do when she's told by this doctor that he's just there to accomplish unfinished business? Then you'd probably have your son, 100% your son, and not the serial killer. She decides to buy a gun from a pawn shop, and she's going to do the unthinkable, which is go get rid of this woman for the sake of having her son normal and not losing her family, because that serial killer that's reincarnated in her son just almost killed her husband, the boy's dad. And I won't tell you how. That's one of the great scenes in the movie. And not because I didn't like the dad, because he survives anyway. But not trying to confuse you purposely, but I don't want to make it so simple that you just don't need to see the movie, because the movie is a simply told story enough as it is. So I don't need to simplify it even more. So I'm trying to go back and forth a little bit just to give you some guessing material and prompt you to want to see this movie. You need to see the movie. But anyway, with her making this unbelievable decision to do what she's going to do at the end, a lot of even great movies, when they've gotten to the end of the film, it feels like the creators have ran out of ideas. This film did not. And it was not that kind of movie. And I'm so excited. And in celebration of creativity, I'm excited that I saw a movie today that was both original and the ending had punch to it instead of running out of gas. But anyway, her sanity takes over. She, of course, does not want to do this. She decides she's not going to do this. But the son that she left in the car, that is a reincarnated killer, well, the killer's identity takes over. The son comes in, and in one of the most evil scenes from this boy that's in the entire movie, finally gets his victim that got away. So she meets her inevitable demise. 8 years after she survived him, he returns to kill her, but in the body of an 8-year-old boy. And it seems extremely poetically tragic. And then he runs out of the house, the mother runs after him, and she decides, if you're already taken over completely, my son's body, talking to the serial killer, then you're not going to get away. She's willing to shoot her son and kill him to do away with the serial killer, because she feels like he's not around anymore. anyway. And he tells her that. He even shows by example in front of her how he can act like her son and be so innocent. He says, you know, do I sound like your son when I do this? And he said a line that earlier in the movie we thought was her son, when it's the soul of this killer that's been reincarnated in him. So that lets her know there's no saving him now. It's the killer that's completely taken over this 8-year-old's body, and he will live a whole nother life of killing people. So she raises a gun, and just when you think that's the unthinkable, but she's going to do it. But your mind is already thinking about, what does other people think happened? What will other people think happened? You killed your son. Who killed the lady in the house? Are they going to believe that was an 8-year-old boy? So you're going to suffer the consequences of 2 murders, and one of them being your son. But she wants to get rid of that serial killer. So just as your mind is already thinking about what other people would think of her that won't understand, we hear the gunfire go off. Cut to the son's face and the mom's face laying on the ground. The son starts to act like, you know, he's healthy. He gets up and looks. The mom's having trouble breathing. A stranger that lives on the property that they ran into in this field saw her pointing the gun at her son, and he took her out. So the dad's in the hospital after a violent car wreck caused by the son. We don't know whether he'll make it or not. The mother's dead. The sole survivor from the serial killer 8 years ago is now dead too. But the survivor is the 8-year-old that is really the serial killer reincarnated. So I just spoiled everything for you, but not without warning, because the title of the video was, spoiler alert, Prodigy review. But even with everything I've just told you, you will not want to miss this film. And don't even wait for it on DVD when you'll be pausing it, when it'll be lower than the laughter and bullshit of somebody in your house. Go see this movie in a theater uninterrupted and slap anybody who won't shut the fuck up in the movie theater. Because you need to see this movie in its entirety uninterrupted to appreciate how simple storytelling can be the most effective film without the special effects, without all the gore, without the CGI, without the unbelievable ghost story factors, without the unbelievable Antichrist has been born in my son factors, without any of that bullshit. This movie is damn near perfect. I just didn't like the guy they cast for the father. I would have liked seeing somebody that has a little bit more believable acting chops. There was a lot of scenes where he wouldn't say anything, but the camera's fixed on his face, so they needed one of those actors that can do acting with their facial expressions. He cannot. He was, you know, a wooden Indian. For a lot of people who don't know what that means, a wooden Indian, the statue outside of most pawn shops, so many of them have them, and they do nothing. They just stand there because they're a wooden statue. A lot of people call a quarterback that is not mobile a wooden Indian. Well, this guy, when it comes to acting, is a wooden Indian. I don't think that he should have been the father. I would have loved to have seen this movie with a more likable father, but it's not somebody who's done a ton of films like this with the same creepy aura. So not Kevin Bacon because of Stir of Echoes. Great movie, but I don't want to see him play that same father again. I don't know who I would cast. Maybe somebody that we haven't seen do this kind of movie yet, that everybody thinks is only an actor because they're a heartthrob, when in fact they have a lot of acting chops. Zac Efron comes to mind, believe it or not. I would have liked to have seen him play a young father for a young couple that's just having a baby. Perfect age too. And I know he has acting chops. He can do a lot of that expression acting without saying anything. I even see it in comedies like The Neighbors that he was in. Or Neighbors, not The Neighbors, but Neighbors. But anyway, even with that fault, 8 out of 10, 4 out of 5 stars, either scale you want to use. That's my review. That's my psychobabble bullshit on Prodigy. Great film. Don't miss it. Go see it. Don't wait for DVD, because you know as well as I do, a knock on the door, a phone call, a text, scrolling through Facebook, it ruins movies. Go sit in the theater and enjoy Prodigy. You'll thank me. Simplicity in storytelling with a great, realistic looking movie.
Miles is dangerous.
Oh my God.
Horror is the most cinematic genre. As an audience member, I love horror films because I feel something when I watch them.
I was shocked by the script. It was so scary.
I appreciated how mean-spirited and nasty it was. This feels genuine. This feels honest. This feels complete. I've been interested in horror films as far back as I can remember.
One of the first movies I produced was The Exorcism of Emily Rose. I've always loved the genre, and it's fun to scare an audience.
When I was a kid, I would watch old monster movies on TV. But the film that really kind of destroyed me was The Exorcist.
I'm no longer speaking to Miles. I'm speaking to the person who has taken residence inside his body. You came uninvited.
When I read the script for this movie, it was so twisted, it was so kind of subtly bizarre, and it was getting darker and darker. I want the movie to be like a trap that draws you in, and then it pulls the rug out from underneath you.
I'm so enthralled by this movie, and I admire the horror genre in a way that I didn't understand before. It's just an exciting movie.
One of the great pleasures of making horror films is that you get to hear the audience scream.
Miles, what did you do?